Welcome to the 32nd in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization designated Brookline its first age-friendly community in New England. And this was a result of the work of the Brookline residents, the town board, the select board, the town departments, and also the leadership of Brookline Can, a volunteer organization that works on issues of Brookline residents of all ages. We recently elected in our town a new member to the Brookline Town Select Board. And this was Dr. Miriam Aschkenasy. I'm glad to say that today we have Dr. Miriam Aschkenasy on our show, and I'd like to introduce her. Miriam is a retired physician. She's a public health expert. She has a master's in public health and public administration. And Miriam is a program director of the IARA at the Harvard Kennedy School, which is the Institutional Anti-Racism and Accountability Project. She also helped initiate in Brookline, the Brookline Superintendent Advisors Committee on Race and Equity. And then she served as a member. She was the Heath School PTO treasurer, and also the a board member, president and board member of the Heath Extended Day Program. Miriam has two children in the Brookline Public Schools, 6th grader and an 8th grader. And she's lived here for 20 years, moving, as we all like, from a rental to a condo and to a single family home. Welcome. Miriam, can I call you Miriam, Dr. Aschkenasy?
Please do, yes.
Welcome today, and welcome to the town government, because it's good to see new members. And I'd really like to know I want to know why you ran, but I really want to know what you're planning on doing if you, and I think I'm not the only one.
Yes, so, well, thank you, Matt, and I hope it's okay I call you Matt.
Absolutely.
So I'm not a novice to town government. I was on town meeting for 4 years before deciding to run for select board. And I think it's important. I'm going to tell the story of why I ran for town meeting, because I think that really sets the stage about why I decided to run for select board. You know, I had applied, and I don't, by the way, I don't pull any punches. So I'm not very good at being politically correct. It's a little crazy that I got elected. So this was probably close to 6 or 7 years ago. The Diversity Commission was not in its current form. So it was a big commission. There were like 4 empty seats. It was before Lloyd's time. And I applied for a position on this seat, and I was being interviewed by the select board at the time. And there, again, 4 empty seats. And the case of the firefighter Elston came up as a part of the discussion. And they asked me how I would handle it. And I said, look, we make mistakes. We made a mistake. We should fix it and make it right and move on. And they did not appreciate my response. And to be frank, they ghosted me, right? So I did not get put on a panel that had 4 empty seats. I was eminently qualified for, and I never heard from them. And it felt very much like I was being told to sit down and be quiet. And that just is not how I work. You tell me to sit down and be quiet, and I'm going to stand on the chair and get a bullhorn. And so I did what I thought was the logical next step, which was run for town meeting. I said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to go away so easily, right? I don't like how I was treated. I don't like how that happened, and I'm going to do something about it. So I ran for town meeting, and then while in town meeting, I was responsible for passing a budget amendment to help control the select board spending on the case of the firefighter of Gerald
Right.
Alston. And we did pass that budget amendment, and I worked on another warrant article also in relation to that case, but that did not pass. And then when that warrant article went to the select board, the select board just said, we don't, we're just not going to follow that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and now you see the
By
pattern,
the
right?
way, I do remember that. And I feel the pain as you're saying that, but I do remember it very well.
Yeah.
The words used.
And so it's the same result, which is I felt silenced and I felt relegated, to the popcorn gallery. No, what it is you did we're not going to see that. And so my response was the same, which is to stand up on the chair and get a bullhorn. So in this case, that meant, well, I don't like how the select board is making these decisions. Well, the solution is to then be a member of the select board. So that's why I decided to run.
So I want to ask you, and
Yeah.
I not only respect that, I completely understand why you would do all of that. You're now coming on the board, and I realize you're brand new to it, right? But it's a big town with a lot of other issues.
Yeah.
And we have a whole bunch, for instance, that this show identifies. So
Yeah.
Have you thought about that at all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't look, I am not a one issue person. I mean, obviously this issue, race equity especially, is a core passion of mine. I mean, both of my kids are Black.
Right.
It is very much a different experience being Black in Brookline, or raising Black kids in Brookline. In America, to be clear, but Brookline is not a special fairy place that doesn't have racism, right? It is just like the rest of America. We grapple with many of the same problems, but you don't get a seat on the select board by running on a single issue. And frankly, you shouldn't, right? You should, I had to learn a lot about affordable housing. I had some great tutors, people who really literally sat down with me and gave me these wonderful overviews of affordable housing. I had to learn a lot about the budget and financing. And really, I actually ended up reading, there's a report, a BFAC report with 18 recommendations, so and I will say I didn't have to learn as much about senior issues, and we'll talk about this later, but, because I help care for my mother. And so already some of those issues are really an important part of my life. But certainly the idea of integrating youth and senior issues, and certainly actually one of the really interesting things was that I think helped get me elected was engaging the youth in the political process. I think seniors are much more engaged, and maybe this is a broad generalization, but they are much more engaged politically.
Well, seniors are around 20% of the population.
Right.
So there's, sure. And also you're right, active. I'm sure they're very active. The board is now 3 people that are under 55 and 2 people that are over 70, right? So that shouldn't be an issue as to whether or not who's speaking. Of course, you may not consider yourself a youth, but I must say I do.
So this is where I think, we talked about this a little bit earlier, which is, I'm in the middle, right? We have Heather and Raul. Raul's a new dad. He's got a new little beautiful baby girl, Maya. And Heather is single. They're younger than I am. And, Bernard and John are older than I am, but I'm really smack dab in the middle. I am going to be 49 in 2 weeks. Yay me. My last year in my 40s. Listen, I thought 2 years ago, I thought I was turning 48 when I actually was turning 47. I was a year off. For the entire year, I was telling people the wrong age. So I got to be 47 twice, which was kind of fun. But I think, and I'm also the only current select board member with kids in the public school system. And I think it's actually been quite a while since there's been a
That's
select
good,
board member
actually.
with children. Yeah.
That's very good.
So
I-
it
and honestly,
brings a different perspective.
yes. And we had that in the past, I think, but it was quite a while. It was a while ago. And I think that's a good thing to have again. So certainly that's a different perspective. Absolutely. So as far as the voters are concerned, have you gotten any sense of you've had a couple of votes? I guess you haven't done much, but have you had any sense of reactions to your presence?
So we've had a couple. So I will tell you, yesterday we took on a couple of very big votes. We voted on some of the recommendations from the Reimagining Police Task Force. Yeah, and the change in the makeup of the politics of the select board. So I'm a progressive. I say unapologetically so. Absolutely made that vote different than it would have been prior to my election.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it was 3-2. So this is not about policing, but we voted on terminating the school resource officer program and the walk and talk program.
Ah, yes.
And it was 3-2 in favor to terminate. And that absolutely would have had a different outcome a month ago. But frankly, that is part of the mandate, because to me, both of those are anti-racist decisions, right? Those programs disproportionately negatively affect people of color, students of color, and our community of color. And that is one of the, again, that was one of the core reasons I think people voted for me. So it's important that I maintain that. And it's important to me. So that was big. We're taking on the Alston case very aggressively, trying to find resolution to that. So already right away, feet to the fire, 100%.
Okay, so clearly in that area, you will have an impact, and I'm hoping you received, since you were elected for that reason, that you received a good response, but I'm sure you probably received some of the
all kinds. and also one of my very first votes, it was for the new affordable senior housing on Center Street, which I'm very excited about.
Now you're talking.
Yeah. I love this, right? It's an entire building of affordable housing for seniors, in a great location. To me, this is what one of the things I talked about when I ran was looking at intersections, right? So the Center Street affordable housing is a perfect intersection of transportation, senior issues, how affordable housing, and climate change, right?
Absolutely.
So perfect. So fully
absolutely. And I was very glad you did that. I mean, that was, there's another area, the Newberry site is being explored as to what should be done. And I think representation from older adults would be, I'm not sure, maybe they're there, maybe they're being involved, but that was one thing when I saw the Center Street, I was thinking, I hope they're continuing, because I think they're putting a study committee together or a panel together on that.
I think they're putting a study committee together. Yeah.
Great. So that's one thing older adults want to be involved in, at least in the thinking and the planning, et cetera. And then we also, of course, have the senior center. And it would be good, at least from my point of view, if you would learn a bit about it, visit it, because now it's open.
Yes.
Just reopened. So there is, again, a senior center that's not just virtual. And, that I would welcome you there. I mean, that's I asked Ruth Ann Dobak. She said, yeah, she's wide open and ready to meet people and see things.
And I had a lovely conversation with Ruth Ann Dobak. When I came on, one of the things that I did was reach out to all the department heads, just for a conversation, just to introduce myself, say, I want to hear what is on your agenda for this year. What are you worried about? What do you, what is your daily take? And that's been really wonderful. I'm getting a tour of the fire stations at some point too.
and you're aware, our show, The Age Friendly City, we mean age friendly. We mean for all ages.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things we do are as good, or even more so in some cases, for for people of either younger ages or different aspects, maybe disabilities, maybe other needs. So there's and we're involved. I mean, so the older adults in town are involved, and all different types. See, that's the question. And when I asked, and you said the youth put you in, but one thing I think I've noticed in older adults is we have across the board all different views, all different types of people. We have workers, we have paid workers and business owners that are older and as old as me and older. That's pretty old. We have retirees and volunteers, which are very different, and they volunteer and are available to provide their experience to anybody that's really wants to use it and reach out. And I noticed for instance, in some of the towns up in, it was actually New Hampshire, where they have intergenerational activities. They involve the high school and they involve the senior center, and they work together to do things. We've never been able to really accomplish that. We've tried that a few times. So that kind of thing would be really good. And then we have transportation. So we have the questions of, believe it or not, we're bicyclists, we're pedestrians. You guessed that probably. We are drivers and passengers on public transportation, and we ride share, etc., all different types. So the interests, complete streets, the use of bicycles, the use of various equipment, wide sidewalks, and the ability and sidewalks that are in decent shape, lighting, street lighting. I'm giving you, I'm throwing out a sampling, but just an idea of the kinds of things that interest us. That is, as far as I can tell, helps everybody.
Yeah, to me that speaks to the idea of intersections. One of the things that I think the town struggles with in general is we do a lot of work in silos, and this is the natural challenge when instead of having a single mayor, you have 5 select board members. We have 5 select board members, and you have a town administrator, but it's very hard to have a cohesive strategic plan. And the way the legislation works with warrant articles, right? So you get groups like the Climate Action Group. It's a great group, right? But their focus is climate action. Right. And there's not enough talk between the transportation and the biking group and the climate action group and the affordable housing group and the race equity interest.
Absolutely.
All of those things interact and intersect. And just as you said, these are things not just for seniors. Everybody wants a decent sidewalk. Everybody.
Absolutely.
And decent transportation and actually really good. I talked about this a lot on the campaign trail. My son, who is going into the high school, he's going to be biking to school most of the time. Right. So
yeah, right.
It's really personal for me that he has safe and decent roads to bike on. So I think all of those, they're all encompassing issues for the town. We don't do a very good job of thinking about the intersections.
And when you say the intersection, I think my point is that every one of those issues as they come up, that one of the groups that should be involved in it and isn't today, and maybe for the same reasons you just described, is older adults. And you can certainly reach out to the Brookline CAN group and the Brookline, and the Age Friendly Cities Committee itself is a select board committee. John Van Skoyak was just named liaison to it. We'd certainly welcome you there, and anybody else from, and we've had people in the past, but I think reaching out, what we would like is when everything that everybody's involved in, we'd like to be involved in too.
Yeah. So this is a great opportunity for me to plug the town is just starting the process of redoing the town government website.
Great.
Yes. And I just had a wonderful meeting with Feng Yang and Ben Vivant this week. And one of the things they outlined for me to see was this really robust public engagement process. And so that's something, you know, that
That's
can
great.
help. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. One of the things I hope that comes out of the redesign is it's actually much easier for people to volunteer to participate in committees that the town has, you know, by making it more easily accessible on the website, which is something that's on my list.
Yeah, that would be great.
But part of the revamp will definitely be reaching out. So CAN will be on my short list. There'll be surveys. They plan to reach out to the age-friendly committee. It's on the list. I double checked. It's there.
Good.
They'll be reaching out to the Disability Commission, you know, trying to get as much input as they can for the revamp.
Yeah, if there's anything the pandemic, COVID-19 has done, is made clear how important technology, involvement, et cetera, is to everybody.
Yeah.
Right? And it's great support for people who couldn't get out. Well, when there is no COVID-19, there's a lot of other people that can't get around.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to see the ability to have hybrid meetings. But that's not you, that's the state. But
no, but the
that's your
state
opportunity.
the state, Tommy Vitolo sent out an email this morning. They did extend some of the loosening of the restrictions of the open meeting law until April 2022.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, so there's some time now to keep, for now at least, keep some of the meetings remote until there's a hybrid option.
Right.
And then I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen after April 2022, but at least for the near future, we have some flexibility.
So as the IT, is that something that's on their plate, is to try to figure out a hybrid?
Oh yeah, we got quite a few complaints about yesterday's select board meeting, which ended up being fully in person with no ability for people to come Zoom in.
Okay.
So so I don't know if, I think what may happen, I don't want to speak. I don't know what's going to happen with next week's meeting, if it's going to be fully virtual, if it's going to be hybrid or fully in person, but certainly I know the goal is to figure out how to do something that allows public engagement remotely.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put public engagement on your list.
Yes.
That's what I'll be looking for you for. So, and keep following as we go. So the schools, the intergenerational, I just did want to bring up that when I did see it involves schools. We now have a tax. Do you know about the tax work-off program?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. There's people can work in schools, except that now there's no work in schools because and again, it's something that just needs promotion and needs to be moved. Mm. But it allows people who are based on income, et cetera, but who can work off, not pay taxes rather than taxes. And also rentals we had before COVID. We had people who could actually get paid for 1,000 hours of volunteer work.
Oh, wow.
And they would then get paid for it. And of course, they didn't have the taxes, the real estate taxes.
Yeah.
So it's either a tax, it's two separate kinds of things, and the assessor's office. And there's a number of things like that are worth, but the intergenerational, anything that comes up in that area, I think we're really looking for. So I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to ask me any questions or to say anything else about what you're looking to older adults for.
Well, I think so. If your viewers don't know this, they'll know now. We had a lovely kind of pre-conversation. And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that actually there were two things that I think would be interesting for us to make sure to bring up here, which is that I myself am in the sandwich generation, which means that I'm both caring for children and helping to care for my aged mother. And
you're probably not the only one in town.
Yes, right. And it gives I actually think that it speaks to this intergenerational issue as well. My 12-year-old daughter is requested to spend the month with my mother this summer. And it requires, my mother has moderate dementia. She has a care team. I'm her power of attorney, but we made it happen, right? We kind of set up all sorts of supports so that my daughter can go spend a month with my mom.
That's great.
Because they both love it so much.
They're right.
We
Right.
said
I
the
know, I
common
understand
enemy,
that.
mom is
I
the
have
common enemy.
grandchildren. I'm not going to say the nasty comment.
Yeah. But it definitely adds, and then that brings to the second part, which it adds to my framing of reference for aging. What my frames are what my mother's needs are. And she needs a wheelchair, she requires oxygen. So when she comes here to Brookline, it's really very clear how challenging it is for her to get around. We don't go down to Coolidge Corner and pop for a walk because it's really hard. So how I frame my thinking about aging, obviously I have my clinical frame and I have my personal frame. But it's always important to have conversations like these so that my framings grow and change and I learn.
Yeah, I think there's also there is a need for full involvement between. You're right. You're a sandwich, and you're between the two. But even children, teenagers, adults, and when you say older adults, we're of all different levels, right? And all, even of the same age or different ages, with very different requirements, and many requirements that we all have. But the connection between the younger ones and older providing experience, providing the background, they want to, right?
Mm-hmm.
People want to be involved at all ages, but especially when you're older, you have the time, you have the ability. So taking advantage of that, the politician, the doctor, the sandwich people that learn how to take advantage of the availability of both experience, time, and interest and desires of older adults will do very well.
Well, and I will say too, that not only do older adults have the time and the interest, but speaking clinically, the evidence is very clear that the more that they keep doing, the sharper they stay.
Yeah, absolutely. And walking.
And walking, and I mean, yeah.
Today's world, the last.
I told my mother, I don't know, several years ago, I mentioned to her this study, because I love my studies, this study that looked like crossword puzzles. So now my mother does a crossword puzzle every day.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. So yes,
okay.
Untapped potential.
Untapped potential. And I would be very glad to leave you with that unless you have something else you want to bring up. Okay, so I'll just remind everybody that the show is seen on both on Big, and Big shows it a number of times over many weeks, and so you can see it again and again. The program is broadcast several times. It's also on Brookline CAN's website, the Brookline Community Aging Network's website, and it's also on the Facebook and Twitter accounts for Brookline CAN. And Dr. Aschkenasy, you are absolutely welcome to come back after a little more. You get a few more things that you want to bring in and that we want to ask you after you make some decisions and some votes. We'd be very happy to have you back. And
I'll tell you what, I would love to come get a tour of the senior center.
Okay.
Thank you.